Welcome back, guys, or if you're new to my channel, this is Automotive Anonymous, and today's video is going to be a fun one. It's actually a pretty highly anticipated one because last year, over 60,000 of you guys watched my comparison between all four engines in the Silverado lineup. So today we're going to do the same test, but now we have the 2025s. We're going to do a 0 to 60 both off of idle, and then with a 4-wheel drive high or 4 auto launch to see which of these engines is the fastest. Half of them are turboed, half of them are naturally aspirated V8s, and we're going to start with the smallest displacement engine first. So a 2.7 TurboMax that has the 8-speed automatic transmission. And then we'll switch it up to the 3 10-speed vehicles, the 3-liter Duramax, the 5.3-liter Silverado, and then the big boy 6.2, if you guys can see that right there, at least one of these 6.2s. That one is technically a 2024. But we're going to have some fun. We're going to do this test. And if you guys like anything you see today, please consider liking this video. If you want to buy one of these trucks at a huge discount, check out Twin Falls Chevy website. I'll link them below. They're one of the best dealerships to work with. And they have everything from work trucks to Duramaxes to Bisons to regular ZR2s to everything in between. And with that said, let's hop into the TurboMax Silverado and see what that puppy can do. I'm currently driving the 2.7-liter TurboMax out of town. And to the best of my ability, all of these vehicles are going to be the crew cab with the short bed, or if we must, the standard bed, just depending on what inventory is looking like. So they're basically going to be just about the same spec configuration. They're all going to weigh probably around 5,600 pounds. Currently, the density altitude is pretty high. We are about 4,000 feet above sea level where I'm at today. But it's a cold morning. The temperatures are in the 50s, and I think these engines are going to be doing really well. Keep in mind, though, that the turbo engines only lose about half of the horsepower at elevation that the naturally aspirated engines do. Naturally aspirated engines lose 3 to 3.5% of their power per 1,000 feet of density altitude, so pay attention to that number in the top right of the graph. Otherwise, the turbo engines, maybe assume they lose 1 to 1.5% of their horsepower per 1,000 feet of density altitude, so none of these are going to be as fast as they would be perfectly conditioned at sea level on a sticky track. But this is real world results. This is what you get. And this truck specifically, with 310 horsepower, 430 pound-feet of torque, it has a 342 final drive ratio. These trucks will start at the same point on the same roads within a few minutes of each other. Density altitude is currently 5,100 feet. I have sport mode on, all-wheel drive auto or 4-wheel drive auto, and traction control off. We're just going to mash the pedal and see what happens. Let's go. Not bad. True 0 to 60 came in at 8.08. Time for the brake rev in the TurboMax. That felt much better, and 0 to 60 came in at 7.62. So a little bit over 0.4 of a second faster, and that's true time, not discrediting rollout. So running a 7.6 up to an 8-second 0 to 60 in this 4-cylinder turbo Silverado, for being a full-size truck at a mile above sea level, I really can't complain about that. I think that's a pretty stout time, but I am curious to see what the diesel 3-liter 6-cylinder inline turbo engine does next. Next up is the 2025 Duramax 3-liter inline 6. This one makes 305 horsepower, so only 5 less than the TurboMax, but it more than makes up for it in 65 pound-feet of torque. It does have a little bit more limited RPM range. Being a diesel engine, doesn't rev quite as high as a gas counterpart version, but still we're going to see what this thing can do, and we're going to see if it's faster because of all that torque, or if it's not. This one is at a slight disadvantage. It has a 323 final drive ratio, so not the 342 from the last one, but it still is a crew cab, and it might actually be a standard bed, not a short bed. I think that is a standard bed. So it has a little bit more length, a little bit more heft, but let's take it on the road and see what it can do. As I make my way back out of town to the private road, I just want to mention this diesel seriously sounds so good, especially at low speeds when you're not fighting wind and road noise, when you can just really hear the engine doing its thing, revving, just a few thousand RPM, getting off the accelerator, hearing the blow-off valve of it. It might be the best sounding Silverado in a 1500 right now. I know that's subjective. Comment below what your thoughts are on which one sounds the best, at least thus far, and we'll get to the V8 soon enough. 0 to 60 off of idle in the turbo diesel. All the other parameters are the same. We're in 4-wheel drive auto. I have it in traction control off and sport mode on. Density altitude, though, has dropped slightly, about 200 feet to about 4,800 feet. Let's see what this turbo can do. really hard when it got into the upper RPMs, and then it had kind of an awkward shift into second gear. True 0 to 60, 7.99. So slightly faster than the TurboMax, but only by less than 1/10 of a second. Now we'll do just a little bit of a brake rev. Oh yeah, that hit way harder. Still awkward second gear shift. True 0 to 60, 7.49. So again, it's carrying about 1/10 of a second lead over the last truck. First of all, listen to this turbo inline-6 engine noise. It just sounds so good even under partial throttle like that. So I'm actually a little bit intrigued by the results so far, because last year's test, I'm pretty sure the 2.7 TurboMax actually beat both the 5.3 liter and the diesel, I believe. But come to mind, as I'm thinking out loud right now, it was a regular cab. So that definitely does make a difference. And in fact, maybe I'll go do a review of a regular cab standard bed work truck if you guys want to watch that video. Or if you want to see other videos of the 2.7 TurboMax or the 3-liter diesel, I have a Trail Boss and ZR2 comparison and individual reviews of those coming soon. But anyways, this diesel sounds good. It's pretty quick. But let's hop into the 5.3 liter, which also has a 10-speed transmission next. And we're finally getting into our first V8, a 5.3 with the 10-speed. So this one still makes the same 355 horse, 383 pound-feet of torque that it has for quite a few years now. The 5.3 has been around since the first generation of the actual Silverado nameplate starting in '99. This is now like the 7th year of the 4th generation. So Chevy sure likes their 5.3 engine, and it's lasted the test of time, although this one is not nearly the same one as when these first came out. But this is also a crew cab, so basically the full-size 4-door with the standard bed, which is a little bit around 6.5 feet. So it's basically the same spec as the last truck, even down to the 323 final drive ratio. So once it's warmed up, we'll take it on the road and we'll see what it can do. I would say under moderate to heavy acceleration, the V8 does sound pretty good, but it's very restricted. You're probably going to want to do an air induction kit, maybe a catback exhaust or something, just to open it up a little bit more. So if you're buying the V8 just for the V8 noise, know that from the factory, you really can't hear a whole lot of it. 5.3 V8, all testing measurements are identical. Density, altitude, sport mode, auto, 4-wheel drive, and traction control off. Off of idle, let's go. Not too bad. 0 to 60 came in at 8.33 seconds. So far, without a launch, that's the slowest one we've tested today. But with the launch, let's see what it does. The brakes did not want to hold the torque of this V8. And 0 to 60 true time came in at 8.51. So basically the same, because the brakes did not want to hold this thing down and it started to creep forward, so I can't get an accurate measurement with that. Well, so far the 5.3 liter kind of disappointed just a little bit. Off of idle or trying to do the launch, it just wasn't as fast as the turbo 4 and 6-cylinder engines. But it wasn't a fair comparison. The brakes and the tires weren't holding it, and you could practice and finesse the pedals and not maximally rev it out to the torque converter's bandwidth. But also that's what I did on the other vehicles. They were able to hold it, so for apples to apples comparison, at least as much as I can make in today's video, that's just what it is. These trucks, there's going to be a lot of variation. Plus, keep in mind, the gas-powered non-turbo vehicles are down on power about 2 times as much of a hit as the turbocharged ones at my altitude, about a mile above sea level today. So it is what it is, and it's still a good engine. But let's hop into the 6.2 and we'll wrap this video up. And lastly, we'll wrap this video up with the 6.2 liter High Country. I do apologize, I thought there was a 2025 model year. There's really no differences, but this is a new 2024, just for your own insight on that. It is a crew cab, so the full-size 4-door with the standard mid-grade length bed, and it has a 323 final drive ratio. This 6.2 liter Ecotec 3 engine makes about 420 horse and 460 pound-feet of torque. So let's hop inside, get to the private road, and see if this biggest displacement engine is in fact the fastest Silverado out here. And 0 to 60 off of idle in the big 6.2 liter. Let's go. Not bad. True 0 to 60 came in at 6.77, making this the fastest truck today off of idle. And in 4-wheel drive auto, it didn't even spin the tires. Now I don't know if the brakes will hold the pedals all the way to the floor. Let's see what it can do. Nope, they did not hold. Sorry about that, guys. But true 0 to 60 came in still in the 6s, 6.89. Not bad. And just like that, whether it's off of idle or whether it's being launched, even at a disadvantage, not only from not holding, the traction, but also having the biggest discount in power from the density altitude, this 6.2 liter is still pumping out 6 seconds 0 to 60s, even when it's down on power like 15 to 18%. So really not bad. This is a pretty nice engine. It does come at a pretty high price point. But with that said, what are your thoughts? What are your opinions of this test? Do you like the results? Are you displeased with them? I'd like to know. The first 3 trucks, they did switch their place around from last year, but again, the 2.7 TurboMax last year was a regular cab. That makes a difference. So does the final drive ratio. So does the bed length. Even the density altitude changing by a couple hundred feet between the first truck and the other 3. These are all factors that influence it. The surface was all the same. The slope was all the same. But trucks are going to run differently at different times. Anyways, guys, if you got anything out of this video, please consider liking this video. Comment your thoughts and opinions below. Let me know what you want to see next time. Subscribe if you haven't already. And with that said, I wish you guys the best. Hope you take care and have fun with your Silverados.